Hi, everyone. This is Brooke, and this quick webisode presentation is on how to balance the carrot and the stick. There's really 4 lessons I've learned on balancing the role of motivation and enforcement, specifically when reducing illegal activity in the environmental conservation space. This question has come up a lot. A lot of people have asked me this, and I've been giving this presentation quite frequently over the last year. And it comes up when dealing with limited time and limited resources, where there's an issue of both an enforcement issue and a behavior issue. And the question always is, which do we tackle to see results? Do we tackle that there's a lack of enforcement that's needed to catch those doing illegal activity, or the fact that people continue to conduct illegal activity in the first place? And my answer always is, which is always a little bit frustrating for everyone when they receive it, is we need to tackle both. But there really are some great lessons in terms of how you can tackle both at the same time to see the results you want to see. But I do recommend against doing one or the other. And I'm going to get into that now. So one reason why you have to tackle both is that enforcement alone does not equal behavior change. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying enforcement isn't important. It is critical, especially when dealing with illegal activities. There's no point in having laws or regulation if there's no one there and no system in place to enforce and reinforce those laws. And there are a lot of other benefits of a strong enforcement system. It gives a sense that authority is watching, so people need to be on their best behavior when they know that enforcers are out there and they're watching. It does pose consequences to illegal behavior. Really, like I said before, there's no point in having laws and rules if there's no consequences to breaking those. Then people start to feel and realize and act as if they're not real. It also provides active protection for areas that we need to be guarding regularly, either for the inhabitants in there, human or animal. So there really are a lot of benefits of a strong enforcement system. But it alone is not going to change social norms. Some of the things we've seen when it's purely an enforcement approach without any other motivation or behavioral aspects is the community members or those doing the illegal activity feel that it threatens their current way of life, right? And that's a fear, it's a threat, and it can create very defensive behavior. It can also encourage people being even sneakier, so doing things at night where it's harder to see, finding loopholes. So it creates this even more hidden behavior that makes it even harder to enforce. It can also exacerbate this us versus them situation, and we've seen this in parts where there are people patrolling park areas and people using the park area, and that can get so bad that there's not even an opportunity to communicate or discuss how to get to a better situation, because it's just been too much conflict, and it exacerbates that problem. So in order to really see behavior change, it also requires things like motivation through demonstrating the ideal behavior, what you want people to be doing, using emotional triggers that give them a sense of benefits and drive to do the desired behavior. Even sending social cues. This is what other people are doing. That is considered appropriate and acceptable behavior. You could be doing that too. And even a sense of confidence. I do have the ability to do the legal behavior instead of the illegal behavior. And this comes along with a slew of other things, infrastructure, legislation systems, and I'm not going to dig deep into this sort of form of motivation. I just want to point out that it really takes both the enforcement side with this behavior change side as well. So the ideal combination is doing them in parallel. A communication, outreach, engagement program that introduces and promotes the social norm of the acceptable behavior while also improving the enforcement system or creating an enforcement system if it doesn't exist at all to prevent the illegal behavior from happening. Number 2. Second lesson, enforcers are people too. And this is a picture of Andre the Giant from the movie The Princess Bride. If you haven't seen it, please go see it. And he's considered an enforcer in this movie, and he is tasked with killing the man that comes in front of him. And in this moment, he's like, I don't want to kill you, but I have to, right? So enforcers are real people. They're humans as well. And when we think about improving an enforcement system, we tend to do just number 1 on this slide, provide equipment, resources, and gear. Totally necessary. You can't ask people to patrol an area offshore if they don't have binoculars to see what's happening offshore. But there's also a whole other piece here, which is skill building, communication improvements, and increased motivation of enforcers. And we can use a lot of what we know in terms of behavior change, motivation, community engagement with our enforcement teams as well. And sometimes there is a weakened system because they need something a little bit extra to do this job. It's not easy being an enforcer, especially in areas where you might be enforcing laws against people you know, against a community you're a part of, even against family members or other authority figures. So it can be really hard to do. One way of motivating them even further is providing an indicator of authority to wear. Maybe it's their hats, shirts, badges, something that really give them that sense and send a signal to other people that they are the authority, that they are the enforcers. Recognition when they've done a job well. Like, we tend to focus when people haven't done a good job. But in a lot of these situations, enforcers need to know when they've done the right thing in the right way and then reinforce that behavior among other enforcers. They need to feel like they're part of something important. So they're not just enforcing the laws for the sake of it, but they are contributing to protecting a species, protecting a habitat, and that they are contributing towards a bigger picture. And certainly feel confident in their abilities. And this can be through additional trainings, workshops, showcasing, and just, again, letting people know when they've done a good job can help them feel confident in their abilities to enforce the regulations. Third lesson is self-compliance, the best form of compliance. This is an image from a marshmallow test, and granted, so some of these results are being debated now in terms of what the marshmallow test tells us, but nevertheless, this is a study that sees if kids have the discipline to not eat a marshmallow in front of them when an adult is not present, in the hope of getting a second marshmallow later. But self-compliance is the best form of compliance because it's not requiring as many external resources to enforce the rules. It's really asking for that internal willpower and determination. And it's both cost-effective and sustainable because as more people willingly stop doing the illegal activity, then actually a new social norm emerges. So that social norm has shifted from, we always do it illegally to more and more people are doing it in the acceptable fashion. And then you start seeing the audience reinforcing the norm among themselves. So it's really like self-compliance, but also reinforcing with their buddies and their friends. And then that starts to reduce the burden on the enforcement team. We've seen situations where it's only external enforcement and they have to be at 100% all the time. The second they dip, illegal activities jumping in. The more you get those community members themselves to buy in and adopt the new behavior, they will reinforce it, and the enforcement team doesn't have to be at 100% all the time for that issue. They can actually start to address other issues along the way. Lesson number 4, don't promote the risk until it's real. And I pity the fool that promotes the risk until it's real. An example who did this really well is the Click It or Ticket campaign. This was a whole effort to push people to be buckling their seatbelt. And they started running a campaign that you were going to get a ticket if you were caught driving without your seatbelt. Now, so sure, they could run a campaign and blast these billboards all over the place, but it won't mean anything unless people are actually getting caught, actually getting a ticket for not wearing their seatbelts. So what they did is they had a full force effort to make sure that people were getting ticketed for not wearing their seatbelts. This means that word got around, you yourself got caught, or you knew someone, or you knew someone who knew someone, and that creates this buzz and this sort of reality that this is not just an ad campaign. This is, a real effort and a real risk of getting caught if you do this behavior. Now, granted, sometimes your team, your enforcement teams, and the system in place isn't ready yet to promote the risk, right? So please don't go out there and say, you'll get caught if you do this, if there's no chance that somebody's going to get caught. But if that is the case, if the system's not ready yet, then promote other things, like promote the benefits of doing the right behavior, the acceptable behavior, promote the social norms that are going to be happening. You can promote so many other things, but don't come out with the risk unless it's really a risk, because as soon as people realize they're not going to get caught, then they're not going to believe that campaign, and they probably won't believe any further campaign you run after that. You lose a ton of credibility. So in summary, you have to balance both the motivation side, the carrot, with the enforcement side. Do this by establishing, encouraging, and reinforcing what appropriate and legal behavior looks like, while also improving a weakened enforcement system or starting an enforcement system if one doesn't exist at all. So thanks for tuning in. I want to let you know I run training workshops like this all the time. Could be as short as 3 hours, could be as in-depth as 3 days. I love teaching these kinds of things to all organizations and groups and fellows that are out there. You can learn more at my site, brooktully.com, and feel free to email me at any time, brooke@brooktully.com. Thank you. Bye.